Hey, so I got a question for you. Have you ever felt like you had to be defined by a label that somebody else put on you? Like a professional of some sort or another? When I was a kid, I could be an astronaut, a dinosaur, a magician, all before lunch. And then something changed. All of a sudden, I'm an adult now. I gotta be professional. I gotta be serious. I gotta pick something. I gotta, be consistent. Well, have you ever felt like you're missing out on something? Did you ever have the feeling that you had to let yourself defined by a label that somebody else imposed upon you? Something that you didn't really think fit, but in order to be professional, in order to get a job or whatever it may be, you had to fit into a box? And so you gladly accepted the label without ever thinking about it again? Well, when I think about it, one of the first examples that comes to my mind is when I was struggling to apply for my business license. And I say struggling when it shouldn't be. It should be a really simple process. But what they wanted to know on the form was what category my business was. And believe it or not, even though it's kind of simple, I do home repairs. When I checked that box, it felt like it didn't fit me. It didn't quite fit me because I like to think of myself as more flexible than just a general contractor, which this basically was. You could be doing a lot of different things as a general contractor, but I also see myself as an artist. And there's no box for that, for being a contractor, like doing construction work and all that at the same time. When I apply for insurance, it's basically the same thing. I have to have liability insurance when I go out and work for clients, just in case I screw up. Could cost me my shirt and my coat and everything if I do something really bad. But with the liability insurance, I got a little bit more peace of mind. But again, you have to decide what the category is that you're in. And it seems to, even though it probably doesn't mean as much as I make it out to be, it seems like you're reducing yourself into a box. Of course, the insurance company wants to know what you're doing so they can assess the risk. But when you think of yourself and you give them like a single category that's supposed to represent what you're doing, like, do you have trouble with that too? Or is it just me? Or say you go for a job interview, or you put your LinkedIn profile, you have to put your whole personality in there, even though like it doesn't really seem to fit you. It's like you have to pick something. You have to pick something that might not be your favorite thing about yourself, but you have to pick it just in order to fit in and to even have a chance at getting selected or hired or whatever it may be. You're writing a script, you're turning yourself into a character, like a character in a movie. When you're watching a movie and you have these characters that you really hate them from the first minute because everything they do is along those lines. They'll plan something really sinister to hurt somebody else or enrich themselves or whatever, and everything about them is just the same. That's what movies do. They reduce what could be a very diverse person into a character that is there for a purpose. In that case, the punchline, the story. You don't need to know anything about the person that doesn't fit that profile. Quite the opposite, because if you did, it would probably get you off track. Am I wrong? So along those lines, if I say for the sake of getting employment or a career, a high-paying career or whatever, would it be fair to say that you're letting yourself be reduced into balancing on a beam here? Would it be fair to say that we're basically letting ourselves be reduced to something like a character in someone else's movie? You're trying to fit into an organization, trying to fit into their script, and in order to do that, you almost always have to leave something out about yourself, or perhaps you even have to change some truth about yourself. It's pretty hard to balance here without any second hand. There's a reason for all this, obviously. Companies and organizations you register your business with and whatnot, they want to categorize you because what they need is clarity. Complexity is just more work for them. That's not what they're after. So it makes sense if they're demanding some kind of concession, I guess, on your part that makes you into their character in their movie or whatever it may be, whatever you want to call it, fit into their box and their limitations. And oftentimes that's where you'll stay. You'll just stay there. You'll be limited to that for possibly years and in some cases decades. Companies don't care who you are. What they need is clarity, simplicity, and in reality, none of us is as simple as a character in a movie. We're all complex individuals. And sometimes the biggest challenge can be to remain that way. Because once somebody puts a label on you, it's very hard to separate yourself from that. I'm sure you've seen people say, even here on YouTube, I am an introvert. Sometimes they'll even say, I am a type 7 ENFP. Whatever that may mean, I haven't got a clue. As you can tell, I'm not up on these labels. But have you ever thought that maybe when people call themselves introverted or extroverted, whatever it may be, or anything in between there, that it might be more of a script than it is actually their true nature? Let me ask you one thing. Have you ever done something that you thought was completely out of your character, but it made you feel really, really good about yourself? Have you ever thought that maybe that was actually more you than the way you usually act? See, I can tell you from my own experience, when I go to a customer where I know they are quite picky and they have expectations that everything I do must look just quite perfect, well, guess what? I will turn into a perfectionist, or at least as much on the perfectionist degree ladder that I can get myself to do, because not every piece of material you'll buy and not everything, not every house and everything quite lines up perfectly, but I will do the best I can for that client to fit that mold, do everything perfect. Now I might get a call from somebody else who says, well, I just need something done really fast. I need to have a tenant move out tomorrow and another tenant move in the next day. And yeah, there's a lot of damage to the walls and I just need all this patched up. Now there's a different type of George. I will show up there, I will complete whatever I can in as little time as I possibly can. I'm a totally different character. I gotta be flexible that way in my job as a professional handyman. Now I'm also an artist. You think I'm still the same person when I'm flying my drone over this river trying to capture a certain idea? I call it idea, but it might be a subject, or it might be just the overall look with the reflection on the water, whatever it may be. At heart, I am an artist. But even that label I will not accept as the sole thing that I am, because I've discovered things about myself that I never knew before, even at this age, and I hope this will always go on, because that's what life is about, guys. You can call it learning in a certain way, but learning about yourself, it's a journey of discovery, and as you probably know, the journey is real. It's the most real thing there is, isn't it? Have you ever watched kids at play and they're doing stuff that you thought, well, this looks like fun, but it's kind of crazy. Like, where did the idea come from? You know, when I see that, when I see kids acting out like that, I kind of know that they're having a good childhood. Whoever their parents are giving them enough freedom to experiment, to be themselves, and as a result, to grow into adults that have a diversified identity. They're not easy to be labeled. Problem is, as soon as you turn into an adult, you have to present an image of stability. You have to be consistent. You have to be professional. You have to be sane. Take responsibility. It seems like you have to squeeze yourself into a box that never quite fits. And don't you think creativity dies as soon as you have to justify everything you do? All these labels that simplify you into someone that others perhaps need, and into someone else's expectation of yourself, they are there for a purpose, obviously. Organizations need simplicity in order to manage us, in order to control us, and organize us, whatever may apply. There's varying degrees, obviously, but they're not supporting our creativity. They exist to make things simpler for them, because complexity comes with cost. And ultimately, our value is measured not in the sum of our positive traits or our entire character, but our value is measured in dollars. But you know what? As frustrating as that sounds, and as limiting as it may be, the good news is you don't have to buy into that. Example, you're allowed to be a social person, and then sometimes you just crave solitude and you introvert yourself, so to say. You don't have to fit anyone's label. You're allowed to be a professional and a dreamer at the same time. Matter of fact, some of the best things in this world were created by people who stepped out of their box that others created for them and broke the boundaries, broke the chains, so to say, and created something that wasn't really in their field at all, just by playing, by experimenting, just like kids do. You can do that too. Have you accepted labels that limit you, that define you the way that others need you for their own purpose? Well, I challenge you, step outside of that and become the whole you. You don't need to be pressed into a mold that is created for you by someone who doesn't want your full potential to come out. You're allowed to be the whole you. And soon you will find out that there's so much more good about you than you ever imagined before. So I hope you enjoyed this video. The idea for this and how important it can be in your life and my life and everybody's life, not to be limited by labels that organizations or others put on us, but that don't really serve us in particular. And I thought it was worth sharing this with you. Now, the idea, it came to me in a dream last night. And if you want to know how you can make your dreams actually work for you to solve problems, I have another video right here that goes into detail about just how to do that and what I think the reasons behind that are. I'll see you there.